Hello, I'm Doug Moffat.
And I'm Bill Chalker. Doug, why are we in this Get Up today?
Well, we're in this Get Up today, Bill, because we're going to recreate a story, amazing vision that happened over 130 years ago on this very veranda, Parramatta Park, Sydney, Australia, of a person who had a vision, Frederick, Birmingham, of a machine that goes through the air. And we'll be back to recreate that vision after the break. Right, Bill, what happened on this very veranda 130 years ago, 1868, on the 25th of July?
Well, a gentleman by the name of Frederick William Birmingham, he was a twice alderman of Parramatta Council and also engineer to the council. He described a vision, or he actually wrote about this vision in a memorandum book that he kept that we looked at, that involved a very bizarre sort of apparitional kind of experience, and he was standing here on this veranda and saw what appeared to be like a flying arc, or what he called a machine to go through the air, flying in a zigzag pattern, and he was sort of looking at this and really quite taken aback by this aerial procession. And then behind him he heard a voice sort of saying, that is a machine to go through the air, and he then described the presence of this spirit figure, a person dressed in what he called a neutral coloured frock, a neutral tint kind of colour, and he then went on to describe how the spirit asked him whether or not he wanted to go on board this ship, this machine, and he said yes, and because he then, the next moment, he found himself relocated to Parramatta Park almost instantaneously, and it's this kind of detail that really makes it interesting.
Bill, how do these experiences relate to modern day contactee and abductee experiences?
Yeah, well, the experience back there in 1868, while it's sort of told in contemporary terms, it sort of really prefigures sort of modern day abduction accounts and contact accounts, because there's many elements there that are very strikingly similar to what we get from many people around the world today.
Like appearing somewhere else without no knowledge of how it got there.
That's right, yeah. The concept of what seems to be more like instantaneous teleportation or something like that. The issue with regard to the actual flying arc, doing a zigzag, that kind of zigzag motion is extraordinarily common in modern day UFO accounts. So even that element, and the presence of a strange person, that kind of thing, and obviously the thing itself appearing to land in Parramatta Park as well. The whole thing sort of resonates very nicely and very strongly with modern day UFO accounts.
Right, Bill, here we are at Parramatta Park. Whereabouts did Birmingham's arc land?
Well, it occurred in the highest point of the old Parramatta Park, and this is where we are now, which today is the golf course area of Parramatta Park.
Bill, at this point Birmingham is standing with the spirit, as he calls it, in front of this arc.
That's right, and the story unfolds. The spirit sort of invited him on board this flying machine, or that's now sitting on the ground, and he guides Birmingham onto what appears to be the deck of kind of almost like a flying arc type of craft, and Birmingham's feeling very disorientated. The spirit shows him two cylinders that by his actions of his hand seem to imply this is what made the airship rise and fall, and then he leads him into what he calls the pilot house, which is kind of a single room, and he goes down a set of stairs. Inside that room, the only piece of furniture is what appears to be a heavy-looking table, and Birmingham sort of at this point writes and marvels how everything seems to be so heavy and strong, which is sort of kind of consistent with the contemporary image of or concept of aerial flight. You know, at that time, the only things that were being experimented with were balloons and that kind of thing. So the whole concept of heavier than air flight was just not even under consideration. You know, aerial navigation was going to be something that was done via light of the air, i.e. balloons or airships.
Well, this whole incident happened 18 years before Jules Verne Clippers of the Air, didn't it?
That's right, yeah. The Clippers of the Air kind of story prefigures the idea of being abducted by airship pilots and that kind of stuff, and here's Birmingham's story telling a similar narrative but from a much weirder kind of context. And as the spirit sort of leads Birmingham down the stairs, he finds himself at a table and momentarily by himself, and then the spirit appears, and in his hand on the table is what appear to be a series of papers, and those papers, Birmingham notices at least one that, well, all of them seem to be all sorts of unusual equations and writing, and Birmingham asks, well, do I need to know this? And the spirit says, you'll learn of this later, later on. And it was only later, much later, over a year later, that he came upon that equation while he was trying to do engineering works for Parramatta Council. And this equation he came across in a newly acquired engineering tables, and it was an equation relevant to centrifugal pumps. Now that at that time centrifugal pumps were a very new innovation, and so that's why Birmingham wasn't familiar with the equation at that time. Directly after seeing this strange equation, suddenly Birmingham finds himself totally alone, and he feels quite mortified and quite disorientated, and starting to think that he regretted sort of accepting the invitation to go on board this strange machine. And he starts to begin to become a bit concerned, and then the very next thing he finds himself waking up in his own house back in Parramatta itself. And this again is entirely consistent with modern day contactee and abduction stories, where people seem to have almost like a bedroom visit, you know, where they're taken out of their own house and then they have their experience, and then they find themselves waking up in their own environment. Now, it invites always the same questions. Is this an event that occurred in the mind, or is it an event that occurred in reality? And the same questions that you ask of Birmingham's experience back in 1868 resonate very powerfully with modern day experiences, and the same sort of questions are being asked.
The difference being that a lot of the influence of today weren't there in Birmingham's time, well, such as Hollywood, yeah, and other people's books.
Well, that's right. Certainly there was nothing prevailing at the time. You know, it predated even, as you say, Jules Verne by a number of years, etc. And therefore there were no sort of historical precedents or even writing or fiction and literature and that kind of thing that would have inspired this story of Birmingham.
I hope you enjoyed our journey back to 1868 Parramatta Park and Frederick Birmingham's vision of a machine that goes through the air. We'll see you next time on UFO.